I'd like to reinforce our intention, so this is a peaceful rally. The police are here to ensure our safety and assist us in constructively carrying out our protest, a freedom that we are entitled to. If during any of the speaker's addresses someone wants to interrupt or become aggressive, please do not respond. Let the police deal with it. Apologists would like nothing more than for us to appear angry, aggressive and bigoted, which we are not. We believe in religious liberty, the right of every person to believe and worship as he or she pleases or not to do so at all. We believe in the right to free speech. Actions by anyone, religious, government or otherwise, should never be immune from criticism. Everything and everyone deserves an open, rational inquiry. I'd like to start by thanking my fellow organisers, our speakers, and all of you who are here to brave the Melbourne winter and get behind this rally. I'd especially like to thank our supporters and endorsers, who include the Rationalist Society of Australia, the Secular Party of Australia, the Victorian Human Rights Society, Broken Rights, In Good Faith and Associates, HEAR, which stands for Healesville Education and Awareness Raising regarding clergy professional misconduct and sexual abuse, the Australian National Secular Association, Socialist Alliance, Resistance, Community Action Against Homophobia, 3CR Community Radio, the Melbourne Atheist Society, the Melbourne Atheist Meetup Group, and the Queer Department from the National Union of Students. Now, we may all come from different backgrounds, hold different beliefs and have different opinions. Yet we are all frustrated in some way with an aspect of so-called World Youth Day and what it stands for. Some of us, especially the many young people, are frustrated about the misleading title of World Youth Day. Some of us are frustrated about the taxpayer sponsorship of the event. Some of us are frustrated about the new draconian regulations passed in New South Wales. And some of us are frustrated by the many less than compassionate attitudes of the current Pope and those before him. Today marks Pope Benedict's first arrival onto the shores of Australia. I think he'll arrive at about 3 o'clock. So what better time to publicly show our opposition to some of his more backwards and out-of-date views on gays, women and condoms. This coming week will also mark a historic decision in New South Wales on whether to reverse regulations that make it an offence of $5,500 for protesters to wear t-shirts or display placards that might annoy World Youth Day participants like the ones you see here today. What better place to hold a response than in Melbourne, where those ridiculous laws do not apply? To those in Sydney, we are a taste of what is to come. I'd like to say a special hello to any Catholics who are similarly frustrated and seek to reform those doctrines that exclude and vilify homosexuals, make women second-class citizens, continue to cover up clergy abuse of children, and spread misleading and inaccurate information on sex and contraception in both the developed and developing world. The power to change things is in your hands and we support you. I'd like to announce that we've got some donation tins. We're raising money for the Victorian AIDS Council. Please donate generously to this wonderful organisation. Our first speaker, 2008 Australian Humanist of the Year and former Victorian Senator with the Democrats, with a lasting legacy of defending church-state separation during her 6 years in the Victorian Senate. Please welcome Lyn Allison, who will be commenting on the $150 million state funding of World Youth Day and speak about why a truly secular government is important for Australia.
Thanks very much, Jason, and fantastic that people have come out today. It's not always a comfortable position to take to question whether church and state has become too close. But that's what you're doing today. World Youth Day gives us this opportunity to question what's going on. And it's my understanding that over the last decade or so we have become much more attached to church. We now have $165 million going into the provision of chaplains in schools. We have, of course, huge amounts of money over $100 million being spent on this event for the Pope. I was in Sydney the other day and someone pointed to the cathedral and said there are millions of dollars being spent on the cathedral just because the Pope is coming to town. I think this is insidious. We've seen over time many more fundamentalist religious zealots entering the parliament, and they have a very strong influence on what goes on and the way in which legislation and spending is dealt with. So chaplains is one example. Now chaplains, for instance, if your school objects to religious education or religious involvement in a secular school, a state school, they cannot take another option. They cannot have a counsellor instead of a chaplain. So this is not only discriminatory, but it's the way in which your money is being used to foster religion in what ought to be a secular education system. I just want to talk briefly about the influence of the Catholic Church in one of our very near neighbours, and that's Timor. I'm about to go to Timor in a couple of weeks and talk with women there. Women in Timor have on average almost 8 children each. And one of the reasons is that the vast majority of women and couples have no access to contraception. Australia provides aid to Timor, but only for security and for police and for totally unrelated issues. And yet Timor's big problem is that in sexual and reproductive health, it is one of the worst countries in the world. So on behalf of women and women's reproductive rights, I'll be arguing that it's time Australia, as a very close neighbour of Timor, gets much more involved in allowing women to have the number and the spacing of children that they desire. And let me tell you, it is not 8. And it's not 8, and we all know that it's the Catholic Church that resists the use of condoms, the use of any contraception at all, apart from the so-called natural method. And this is disastrous for a country which is trying to climb out of poverty. How can you feed 8 children on $1 a day? That's what the situation is in Timor. So that's just one example of the influence of the church, and it's one that we need to tackle, and we need to tackle seriously. But there are many more here, as are represented by the placards and the t-shirts, which I think are fantastic. So good on you, and keep up this argument, because, as I said earlier, it isn't comfortable, it isn't easy, but it must be done.
Yeah.